this is the real one, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alex Krupkin, and I am here with Robert Dudenhoefer, an artist. He does jewelry and metal art, and we're going to be talking for the program Art for Now in Corvallis on CCAT 29. Hello, Robert.
Hello.
Should I just call you Rob, I guess?
Rob, sure.
Okay. So how long have you been an artist, I guess? How long have you been actively an artist?
Actively?
Or is that a trick question because you've been probably doing it your whole life?
Not my whole life, but I did get a degree in a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from the University of Michigan, and it was over 20 years ago. And I've been on and off working at companies that are art-based or by myself.
What was the first company you worked for out of college?
Harmony Hollow Bell Works.
Oh, really?
And they make wind chimes and mobiles.
Did you do designing or was it construction?
Initially it was fabrication, and then I moved on to doing some special projects and machining and helping to develop newer wind chimes.
Was that out of a company out of Michigan?
Yes.
Okay.
But they have a foundry in, I believe, Arizona.
So they make like really big bells as well?
Right.
Did you ever work down there?
No.
Okay. And so how long did you have a kind of, as a career, are you still working as an artist currently?
Yes, part-time.
Okay. On your own art, or are you also working with the larger company? Or both?
On my own.
Okay. What is it you're currently doing for a real job?
A real job? I work at Soft Star Shoes.
Oh, okay.
Which is also a company that started at an art fair.
That's true, yeah. I totally know about them.
Yes.
We can talk about them a little bit later. So when you originally went to art school those years ago, was your intention to work as an artisan for companies, or were you kind of more interested in forming your own creative niche and kind of creating a business from it?
Well, I initially started in the product design program, and also started taking metal working classes, and I tried to meld the two and ended up being more successful in the metalworking class. And at one point, in product design, you make the product that you design, and typically it's made out of wood. And I designed a chair and made it out of aluminum and actually sewed a little seat for it. And the professors didn't really like that. And at that point, that's when I realized it's like, okay, it was less rigid in metalworking.
Oh, so the metal people were willing to let things go a little. You could
I
say the structure of the class was a little more malleable.
Well, my professor made jewelry out of paper.
Oh, okay.
So there were more opportunities to explore.
So when did you originally have the idea that you wanted to do jewelry coming out of?
No.
Okay.
No.
Like if you could have made anything you wanted right out of art school or right out of University of Michigan, right? What would you have done? What would you have made?
Probably jewelry.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but I grew up. My parents had a small manufacturing business in Michigan, and so I grew up. When I was young, I used to go up and sweep the floors, and then when I was older, I would work on drill presses. Or I've been around metal.
Okay, so you've done tool and die stuff.
Yeah, well, that's my dad was a tool and die maker. So.
Yeah. Are you still in business?
No, they've sold the business about 4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, that can be a arduous business to be in these days.
Yes.
So when you first, we're going to hold up some pieces here.
Okay.
Here, you grab a couple. You grab one, and I'll grab one.
Sure. Here I can.
There we go. So we'll just hold them
Out
right here. We'll try to get them together. So what was your, when you're doing jewelry, is this enamel here in the middle?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so did you start work with enamels early on, or is it more of a recent discovery?
It's more recent. Initially, most of my designs were just silver or oxidized silver, which is like this piece here, the recessed area is oxidized.
Okay. So the back plate is oxidized.
Right. So the whole piece at one point was dark, and
Okay.
then I use a matte brush to remove it.
Did you do a lot more kind of physical manufacturing early on in your jewelry making process, or where was it?
It's so everything I do is fabricated from sheet and wire and tubing.
Okay. Is that primarily just because you're comfortable with it, or
And it's what I like to do.
Yeah.
I was an apprentice goldsmith, and I cast for quite a while, and that's working with investment and wax, and
Right.
it's just something different. I learned to enamel because I was lacking color. Didn't want to become gemstone intensive because
Right.
that's a huge field.
Yeah. It's probably expensive to get the really good stuff, and then of course your palette is somewhat limited in reality.
Right, and I really just use gemstones for color.
Right.
And so
Let's take a look at take a look at this nice piece here. Are those garnets?
it's
Oops.
carnelian.
Oh, it is carnelian. Okay. It's
And
got a nice action to it. I'll just.
yes, I'd like to. Here, I can take it off. I'd like to incorporate movement into my pieces, so the center swings back and forth as you wear them. But getting back to the color, I would try and source colored materials, and that takes a lot of time. So I just learned to enamel so that I can get the colors I want.
Then you can customize it too, right?
Correct. And so, like these pieces here, when I first learned to enamel, it's like riding a bike. I think it's a fairly easy process, but you can go anywhere you want with it. This piece here is just plain enamel. That's I haven't manipulated the copper plate that's underneath it.
Oh, okay.
But on this piece, I raised a copper dome, and then from the back, I raised up bumps, and then I put, this probably has about 6 layers of enamel on it.
Oh, okay.
And I would sand them off in
Okay.
between in order to get the raised copper
yeah.
dots. So it's pretty fun to experiment with.
Have you ever done, different color layers, and then you kind of either sandblast or carve through them to create?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Sanded off.
There's the earrings over there with the flower pattern.
Yes.
Is that also enamel?
Yes, this is. It's
push
so
it up the front.
all the jewelry that I make it's sterling silver.
Okay.
And the enamel is fused onto copper plate. You can fuse onto metal like steel, like your
Right.
bathtubs and washers and dryers. But this I like to incorporate, make a frame, and then I like the pop of color. And when I oxidize the silver, it really it creates dark recesses that help the color to come out.
Okay.
If it's high polished, it would have a totally different look and feel to
So
it.
the black of the oxidized silver is what helps to make it pop, and then
Right.
and then you can polish the outside to give it that little sparkle, but you
Right.
retain the oxidized the part that's directly around the enameled section. Do you ever do cloisonné work?
No.
Is it just too much of? It's not your thing.
No, it's not my thing. And
Okay.
another jeweler said she likes my enamel because it's not fussy.
Ah.
And so I think that's where cloisonné is more fussy.
Well, let's take this piece here. Oops. Sorry about that. So this
Sorry?
piece here has kind of a cloisonne feel to it, but it's hollow.
Correct.
But you're using the, the oxidation again, using the black background to create that contrast and a little bit of depth and drama in the piece itself. And I could see filling it up with a couple little dots here and there, but again, that gives it a different geometric feel.
Right.
I think a lot of times with cloisonne, you have to really kind of plan ahead. Otherwise, you end up with something that isn't a cohesive piece. And so I think you might waste a lot of time kind of getting your palette and your message across. Where with the enamels, it's much easier to get to that point.
Correct.
So here's some other nice earrings with that same sort of up and down or back and forth. You got double motion in there.
Yes.
There we go. We'll give them a little. They go back and forth like this. So as you're walking, basically, the momentum of your walk is what makes them.
Correct. And these earrings here, I also, I suppose if you go fast enough, they will spin. But
okay.
all these little pieces do.
So as
move
if you were
independently.
jogging, then you could.
Right. In theory.
In theory, yeah. It's not really a jogger's.
I don't pierce my ear or have my ears pierced, so I'm not certain.
I noticed that you have a combination of, some nice kind of geometric forms, like the pieces here, and then you have, for lack of a better term, kind of organic, or there's some leaves and some flowers, and then you have robots. And
Yes.
so, how do those come together?
Oh, well.
Or is it just fun?
That's my problem somewhat at this point, is that I probably have about 100 different earring designs, because I'll go out and start working, and production for me is to make three pairs of one design, and so quite frequently while I'm working, I'll think of something and then end up making a new design. But I'm slowly trying to focus my product lines to have something that's more natural feeling, or these aren't necessarily, but I do have some designs, and then I have a colorful.
Let me see that. Oh yeah, just
So
pull them out.
these
Switch them out
are
here.
enamel as well. So I have a more colorful line, and then kind of a transition in between the two would be something like these are stylized flowers, and then recently I started making robots, which
So are these enamel also, or is that?
they're sterling silver,
Okay.
and then the belly plates
right.
are enamel.
Okay.
Initially, I was making both earrings the same color, and at an art fair, somebody wanted to buy one of each, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I just figured I would have to go home and make a mate for each one, but by the end of the day, somebody else came up and purchased
Is it
the
like
other pair.
Port and starboard, is that what that is?
Yeah,
I guess maybe that's what it was.
yeah. So that's something I started exploring a little bit with color, and also I have more quirkier designs. Like these are a little guy that my youngest son, who is now in high school,
It still counts though.
drew. Yes, and so they have little wiggling legs. I call him Rocco. That's not my son's name. I don't
Okay.
know how I came up with that name.
But that's kind of pretty intricate. It's like, I mean, it's not clockwork, but it's kind of intricate for an earring. Or
Yes, but I guess I just like to tinker.
Yeah.
And so one thing that is common through my designs is I use beaded wire, like the eyes and the legs here. I take a piece of silver wire, melt a ball on one end, and then feed it through as it's a rivet basically,
Okay.
and then melt the other side
okay, so yeah.
in order to
So if you
attach
get a
pieces.
close up of this, you can pretty easily see the little rivets on the little tiny little balls on the front.
And that solved for me the issue of when you make an enamel piece, you can't solder it onto the silver
Right, because you'll just melt the.
or crack
it.
So that's what I decided to do, how I would connect things. This pendant here, the heart, was an experiment in sewing.
So that's actually your
There's a little, I'll put it out here. So I take silver wire and soften it and bead one end, and then I start sewing through. I learned the hard way. I have 3 boys, and for Mother's Day, I made earrings, a pendant, and also a pin for my wife with the kids. And I made a heart that was approximately this size with holes all the way around the edge. And when you pull the wire through the holes, it hardens the wire.
Right.
And then it won't bend. And I almost couldn't finish sewing around the whole heart. So that's why I developed a, partially sewn heart.
Well, you could use a nickel, like a high nickel silver to like an 80% silver, 20% nickel to get it to be a little bit less hard, I think.
Yes.
Was that, did you drill holes in that piece? Or were they pre-drilled?
I pre-drilled the holes in the copper before I put the enamel on.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes it's just powdered.
Right.
And sometimes the holes close up, so I use a diamond burr to clean the holes out. And typically there are two to three coats of enamel on each piece.
Okay.
And then I make certain they fit in the frame, and then we'll drill through.
You have an Etsy shop.
Yes, I do.
And how long has that been up for?
I think since 2011.
Okay, so you've had it up there for
approximately.
5 years. And have you used it as a kind of a mechanism to see what sells best, or to try to narrow? Because you said you wanted to focus, and has that experience, or also you do a lot of craft fairs, have either one of those given you a good concept of what it is you need to concentrate on?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Etsy is just, it's an interesting thing. I mean, just because it's all over quite frequently. I have other artists who will look at a page and like a design.
Right.
But whether they like it because they actively sought it out, or somebody else liked it and it was on a page, they just said, "Oh, I like that." They didn't see my full collection.
Yeah.
And at an art fair, I'd say I have roughly 60% of my designs whenever I go.
Okay.
But there are some that I enjoy making more, so I make them.
Do they sell better? Or is it kind of random?
It is kind of random, but it isn't sometimes too. And it's like there's a light that shines on a specific design. I might have 3 pairs at a fair, and I'll sell one, and then like 10 minutes later somebody else will come up and buy another one. And it's like it could be the 3rd day of a show and nobody had looked at it beforehand. And I know other artists have said that, but it could also be because of my displays. If somebody comes up and looks at a pair of robots and that robot's moving, when somebody walks up, maybe that draws their eye to it. I'm not.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah. At craft fairs, it's pretty much hit or miss a lot of times.
Correct. So I just, I make
And so
what I like to make.
Yeah. I think ultimately as an artist, that's kind of the best recipe. Although if one particular thing gets really hot, then sometimes you can produce those in larger quantities. So right now you're in, I guess, about a dozen or so overall galleries, I'd say.
About yes.
A dozen galleries. And have you ever had the desire to, or inclination, because you're talking about this focus, to get to the point where, let's just say there were 3, no, let's just say there's 6 pieces or something. You made a line of 6 pieces, and then would you ever have the desire to like make 100 of each of those, and then market them on a much broader geographic basis, and maybe even go through a larger distributor or anything like that? Because I mean, I'm wondering, from a business standpoint, there's, this stuff is awesome, and it's nice to have a good variety. But from a more practical standpoint, it's hard to have a lot of different work in different galleries and have each gallery have a completely different subset of work. Whereas if you have a cohesive, series, then, it's like anything. They see Fritos and Coke in the fridge when they go to the store. It's this, oh, there's Robert's work. I recognize it from when we were in Miami, and now that we're in Seattle, oh, that's cool. I kind of want to buy it now. And so, did you ever have a desire to get to that level of production?
I do, and partially I want to because I know I can't. I spent about a year just doing this full time, and I discovered that I personally cannot make enough product to make a decent living by myself. So
Right.
either I need to try and hire someone to help me or use modern technology to assist me. The
Right.
issue with that is if I do art fairs, they do have rules around mass production using commercial molds and things like that. So I don't want to.
Yeah,
But
if
it's a fine line. But
yeah,
I'd like
but
to.
you could still bring your kind of handmade pieces there, but I guess you can contract out pretty easily to have certain designs made in a certain, you lose a little bit of quality control, but there's
Right.
that point in which you can kind of flood the market with Robert Dudenhoefer,
Yes.
the second unique pieces.
Yes, and I'd like to head in that direction. The challenge for me is I went to art school, and
Yeah.
back then business classes weren't required or they weren't even suggested. And so I think that's a challenge for a lot of artists is the business end of things,
Yeah.
and compounding it now is the digital end of things,
Right.
Where Etsy, having a website, and then just social media.
Yeah, you get kind of lost in the flood of the people who there's a lot of people out there who make beautiful work, and a lot of times at these art fairs, I think people aren't used, now the kids these days aren't used to, they aren't used to buying stuff in person necessarily.
Right.
And a lot of times it's more of a walking museum than it is necessarily an area for where people are actually looking to buy. It's more of people are looking for inspiration, looking for ideas so that they can kind of create their own and put their own stuff on Etsy. And so, the function of craft fairs is different than it was even 5 years ago.
Right, yeah. But going to a fair, well, I just went to one in Seattle, and I have a new gallery
good.
from that. So it's also outreach and
That's true, yeah.
advertising. That's always, you have to remember that when you're there.
Yeah, when I was at the Salem Fair, we had a couple galleries come up and say, oh, they're interested, and they say, well, you're willing to make this many pieces, and so you just have to be open to that possibility.
Right, and be able to plug into that interface. Excuse me, because I've had stores come up and ask me for a wholesale catalog.
Yeah.
And I don't
You're not ready,
have
you
that
just don't.
at this point.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I don't is because I haven't really identified a product line.
Let's take a look at some of your big
Okay.
pieces, just for fun.
Sure.
So,
So this piece here is a pachinko machine that I made. I'll put it center here. I'll set it up here. And
it's based
so-
on a Japanese pinball-ish machine where
Right,
you send
correct.
use a spring to send up balls, and they go through all these cool machinations, and the idea is to get points and win money.
Right. So this one was basically made to. It's all about movement and motion. The roof is made from skateboards.
Yeah, feels like it.
The body is a radio flyer wagon. There are license plates. All the pins on the inside are bicycle spokes.
Oh,
And then the centerpiece in there is a road turtle that fell off the road. And so you, in this little cup are bearings from a bike, and you can use them to get your bearings, was the concept, to know, like, let's say you want to go camping, which direction should you go, north, south, east, or west.
Okay.
And then up on the top here is a little door that opens up.
Oh, cool.
And a tray, and then you just dump the bearings in, and you shut the door firmly, and in theory, everything is the wheel in the center will spin, and I think it's a little skewed to one direction typically, but then there's a drawer that opens in the bottom,
Okay.
and you can count the bearings in there and decide which direction you want to go. Maybe it's the west because there's only two, or south because it seems to have the most.
Well, if you get like west and east having the same in it, then I guess you just stay put.
Right. But the making this was fun to basically engineer how, so when the balls come down, they go into a track that goes into the drawer, and the drawers and the track are made from the arm that held the axle for the wheels on the wagon.
Did you build this from bottom up, more or less? Is that kind of how it worked, or was it just components that you riveted together? It looks like
I riveted together. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at your other piece here.
So here, slide that. The bearings fall out; they roll all over.
I'll just put it here. There we go.
And so this, is more time-consuming, locating all the.
That was for a project for the art center, right?
Correct. So I do here. I can show you a little robot here. I have a concept to use. This is made. The body is from a old steel bicycle frame.
Okay.
And so I knew I wanted to do this. His little, I guess, goatee is from a toolbox.
Oh yeah.
and so the arms are just pieces of steel that I had laying around, and I used an old nail to hold them together. But I didn't like the fact that the arms weren't made, they weren't repurposed. So eventually one day I was walking into a resale shop in town here, and I saw old knitting needles. And so I made a larger robot with knitting needle arms and legs. And then from there I discovered that knitting needles are hollow, and why not just make a smaller version? And that's how I make robots. I put it out here, that are made, the arms are made from smaller knitting needles, and then the body is made from a larger one because the larger knitting needles are hollow.
Aluminum round, right?
Right, it's anodized aluminum, and then I have a sterling silver ear wire on them. And
It'd be cute if you had a knit hat, a tiny little knit hat on top.
I would like
You'll
to
get right
actually,
on that, right?
the larger ones. That's a little bit small for me, the smaller size.
Yeah,
but
they're
the
just
larger
harder.
ones I'd like to add maybe a flower or something to the hand
Yeah.
at some point.
Or a pistol or a laser.
Sure, I thought about little wings on the back.
Yeah, there you go.
But this is, this gets back into spending a lot of time sourcing materials and then storing them. I have a couple old bike frames hanging in the garage.
I decided not to do too much of that because you're always missing something, and then you always have a garage full of scrap, but there's always one thing, and then I only have so much space, and so I have to be
same
careful.
here. So here this is a birdhouse I made.
Was that for anything specific? Was it for
I believe it
a
was.
project?
I just don't remember.
Okay.
And I called it the Airy. I think it was the urban housing for a modern bird.
Okay.
So,
it's a nice piece. It's kind of got a flower, industrial.
Right, right.
It's a nice design.
So
you can see your art school money right there.
Yes, that's where it is. But I did use conduit for the flowers on
Right.
the front, and these are, I think, grounding
Grinding plugs?
plugs.
Yeah.
They're out. And it's made with steel. The side has cedar
Okay.
on it, and then there is at the bottom unscrews to clean anything out. Should
Okay.
a bird actually live in it?
Have you used it as a functional art
I
piece?
have not.
Okay.
I've just kind of had it in my house.
Were you hoping that that there'll be robotic
Someday,
birds in the
yeah.
future?
Maybe it could be a drone home.
There you go. That's true, yeah.
Yes,
It's like
yes,
E.T. drone home.
yes.
That was a
Nice, nice.
there you go.
So I do like to make larger pieces, but it's, I have a bandsaw in my garage, but I can't use the bandsaw on the jewelry.
No,
so
so this is, I mean, this
That's
is kind of
just-
more for you.
Right,
Oh, okay.
right. And maybe someday ideally I'd love to have a whole line of larger items, and a lot of my smaller jewelry designs I could leverage into
Bigger pieces.
bigger pieces, correct?
Like, I could totally see these guys being, 3 feet,
Yeah.
and then maybe even automated with just a kind of a cool piece to have in the home.
Yes, and I actually made
Not
one that was
necessarily as a-
it was about 18 inches tall, using, the body was made from a charcoal starter.
Oh, okay, I was thinking completely entirely out of silver.
Out of silver.
Just go for it.
Sure,
Make a
sure.
big, if you're going to do it right.
I guess.
Have
yeah.
like a real gold crown, stuff like
Nice,
that.
yeah, I can get it.
It could shoot gems.
Be like a nutcracker.
Well, you got to have something for the what's that catalog that's on the airplanes?
Huh?
Hammerker
Yeah.
Schlemmer, is that what the one I'm thinking of?
Yeah.
Or yeah, one of the,
Yeah, well,
you need
Sky
that-
Mall.
In Sky Mall, you need that, $80,000, rope. What home is complete without a $80,000?
A local artist was in Sky Mall
Yeah,
here, Jennifer Lomers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
nice.
So,
So
yeah,
so it's possible.
It is possible.
possible.
yes.
All right, cool. Oh yeah, I can feel the conduit in there. Do you have any other? Oh yeah, this yard piece. Here, bring up that little
And This
flower guy.
is a flower concept. Oh boy, let's see.
Yeah, just here. I'll just hold it up in front.
Okay. That actually was the concept is basically like the pendants with the window in the center.
Okay.
I made these first, and I actually make an oval pendant that looks very similar to that. And so I thought I would just try and come up
I'll
with
just hold it in front of me. We'll hold it in between
some
us
little
here.
designs to maybe sell someday. But when you jury into an art fair, you jury in
Oh,
with
that's
a
true.
medium,
That's
so
true.
I can't.
You're often confined because I
Right.
know that these would probably do, I guess one time just for fun you can take your bigger pieces and yard art. You can just give that a shot, and because if you put this in a plant, people are more likely to
Right.
it's another cool area. Are there rivets on here too that they're holding?
I used this same
Same
idea
concept?
with a brass rod that I mounted
Okay.
to hold the plate in, and then the centerpiece
yeah.
is sewn in with brass wire.
Okay, yeah, it's a nice piece. Here
Thank
we go. Does it have a name?
No,
Fred or nothing?
no name at
Okay.
this point, but someday I do name the jewelry piece,
Oh, okay.
the earrings.
So-
just that one is Moreau, like
M-E-R.
M-I-R-O.
Okay.
and
As
those
an,
are-
okay, as an
Yes,
artist, yeah.
Yes, yes. And those are just robots. They're
Rob-
robots,
they're
but because my name is Rob,
So it's robots. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, it works. No. You need a little shtick.
cheesy
No,
branding.
shtick is shtick can work when it's
Yes.
when needed.
Yeah, and it's better than design number one.
Yeah. Well, you can only get away with that a couple times. I wanted
Yes.
to thank my guest here, Rob Dudenhoefer, the jeweler extraordinaire, for being with me. And you can take a look at his works on Etsy. What's your Etsy?
It's robjewelry.etsy.com.
Okay, so robjewelry.etsy.com. Okay, so there's a lot of really cool stuff on there for you to check out. And is there anywhere to see your larger pieces? Do you have that on your website?
I don't really have many
Okay.
larger pieces around. If I do, like the large robot I made was
what's
at
your-
Chocolate Fantasy.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
So,
What's your website?
well, it's robdudedesigns.com.
Okay,
It's
Rob
kind of
Dude
a front
Designs.
for. I just have a website.
Right, but it'll point you to other things like your Etsy
Like
site or
galleries,
galleries,
yes,
and
yes.
where you can find your
Right.
where you can find your works. All right,
Right.
cool. Well, thank you for your
Yeah,
time
thanks a
again,
lot.
and it's been great talking with you. This has been Art for Now, and I am your host, Alex Krupkin, bidding you adieu.